Bitipon carajo, did he just fucking revive me? This is Game of the Year. In this video, I am giving you my full in-depth review of God of War Ragnarok. This was one of my most anticipated games of 2022 and for the entire world for that matter. As a sequel to the 2018 God of War, this had some big shoes to fill. On top of elevating the scale of what we saw in 2018, it also had to set its own precedent by showing us the true aftermath of what Ragnarok has to offer. The question on everybody's head is simple: did it deliver? No. Hell to the yes. Taking it step by step, one of the main draws to this entry is of course the story and its characters. Most of the cast that we know and love from the 2018 version make their triumphant return and deliver some breathtaking performances that take us through this 20 to 30 hour journey in the best way possible. I'm telling you, Christopher Judge deserves every single award in the book for taking on the mantle of Kratos and truly making it his own. So does Sonny Suljic as Atreus/Loki, going through the journey within a journey to become a man and earn his father's approval. The performances in this entry are something straight out of a movie. As you know, the story structure of this game is modeled as if it were a 20 to 30 hour film that is playing right before your eyes. And of course, if we're listening to these people for over 20 hours, their performances have to be great, and they all are on point.
Young man, you've done it again. Go.
Kratos is now a completely different person. Yes, he is still tormented by the ghosts of his past, but now he has come to terms with what he once was, and now is becoming the man that he wants his son Atreus to be.
You have grown into a warrior, worthy of your namesake.
Speaking of that lil man, Atreus and Loki deliver some of the best moments in the entire game. Mostly because he's not only trying to cement himself as somebody that his father can be proud of, but he's also trying to enjoy and explore life on his own. Freya is making her triumphant return as a grieving mother that ends up being one of the best allies that you could ever have in a video game. Mimir delivers exposition just like he did in 2018, but he also has some great character development moments through your gameplay in this entry.
You don't mean to say you're talking to ghosts again, brother?
No.
I am the Ghost of Sparta.
It is something more than memory.
Brock and Sindri deliver heartbreaking moments. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And of course, we have a slew of new side characters that also add some fire into the fray. We finally get to meet the Norse God of War Tyr, even though it ends up biting us in the ass later on. Ryan Hurst's performance as Thor cannot go understated. This man is absolutely born to play that role. Let's get ready, baby!
Waiting for this. You're not from here. We got a tradition called blood payments. It means I get a piece of you for what you took from my family.
Richard Schiff as Odin is one of the best villains that I have seen in a AAA game so far. Towing that line between a helpful ally and a conniving villain is something that I had never seen executed on this scale. Even though he isn't the cause of all of the disdain in his family, he is the core center of all of the conflict around the game. The way that he antagonized Freya and his son Thor, his haphazard relationship with Sif and Thrud, his granddaughter, and of course the deadly relationship that he has with the Vanir because he basically took Freya and destroyed everybody else's life in Vanaheim. The amount of layers that you get to explore between the character relationships and their dynamics is absolutely great. And of course, getting to annoy our best friend Ratatoskr at every single moment that he showed up around the World Tree was something I will never forget. Ratata, we got a fucking Pokemon in God of War!
Yes. Amber resin. Delightfully nutty with a hint of squidding.
Having talked about the characters and their performances, let's talk about the themes. Most of the ideological narratives from the 2018 game are carried over into God of War Ragnarok. Specifically, the cycle of violence that has to end at some point, and of course, betrayal within the family. As we explore competing versions of what a father and child relationship is supposed to be in this game, we see multiple different avenues of parenting, self-discovery, and of course, redemption and self-awareness. Kratos no longer treats Atreus/Loki as a meddling child.
Stupid meddling kids.
For all intents and purposes, under this gauntlet of violence and craziness, he has become a man. He has his own aspirations, his own ambitions, his own desires to acquire knowledge, see the best in people, and of course help his father across the finish line. With that journey, you get to immediately juxtapose it with these relationships that we see from the other main gods in this story. Particularly, for example, Odin and Thor. Contrary to what you might have seen in the MCU, this is not a lovey-dovey parent and child relationship. It is fueled by resentment and fire. Odin views himself to be a step above all of the other gods. Kratos. He is meant to be the cream of the crop of the Aesir, focused on acquiring infinite knowledge and answer all of life's questions. Through that journey, he not only ends up neglecting his own child, he ends up antagonizing him to the point that their relationship is borderline irreparable. I'm telling you, Ryan Hurst's performance as Thor as a brooding, tormented, and deeply scarred individual that has almost unlimited power is fantastic to behold. Even though he doesn't get as much screen time or play time as we would with, for example, exploring Atreus and Kratos' journey, you can see that the damage that his father has caused has led him to take on unhealthy, aggressive, and violent tendencies in order to cope with the fact that he was not loved as a child. Going even beyond that, we also see that extend to his relationship with his own child, Thrud. This is generational trauma that we see explored right before our very eyes through characters that we don't even get to play as. And of course, these family dynamics are all intertwined with the main themes of this game, which are purpose and destiny. Are you willing to weave the threads of fate and actually take control of your own life? Kratos and Atreus are obviously dealing with another theme of grief and intertwining it with these two major themes as they seek to right the wrongs that they have caused and that they have seen others caused in this enormous pantheon of Norse mythology. They are actively trying to answer the question and say, yes, you are able to forge your own path and actually forge your own fate. All of this ideological exploration is just my way of showing you how the story, the writing, and the performances from these actors intertwined in such a way that made this game a full-on epic of mythological proportions. So now that we have covered most of the narrative elements, let's talk about the actual game itself. Before we continue, I should let you know this is my gaming channel and this is my main channel, where we cover everything in pop culture and everything on the gaming sphere in two separate little packages that you can love and enjoy. So if you're enjoying the content, make sure to like the video, share with your friends, subscribe to both channels if you're new with the notification bell on, and let's get on with the show. One of the big things that sets God of War apart from most of its contemporaries is, of course, the gameplay combined with the music. Bear McCreary is returning as the main composer of this entry and delivers a breathtaking score that takes you through the entire journey in a way that makes you feel like you are inside this story, especially when you take into account the orchestral epicness that you get in boss battles and even mini boss fights. But everybody knows that what makes a game like this so great is, of course, the gameplay. So first of all, let's talk about the combat. The main theme for this game's combat is thankfully customizability. The Blades of Chaos are returning and giving you a great option for crowd control. Then you get the axe, which looks even stronger than the 2018 version, if that was even possible, that allows you to deal heavy damage, especially in the later game when you get to upgrade all of the skills and, of course, add some amazing little runic attacks that add some extra levels of power. This is the moment. If you haven't played the game, spoilers ahead, we are covering one of the biggest elements of the late game right now. So mi pana, I'm gonna give you a little bit of time. So we got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Dropnir Spear is the best friend for anybody looking for a ranged option. Exploring the game also gives you a ton of cues that you're going to get a new weapon, and this addition was well warranted. Not only does it help you in terms of traversing the actual game, it also gives you a great third option that you can pair with multiple different skills and abilities that gives you a solid Spartan playable experience. Dude, the traversal mechanics in this game, mwah. One of the biggest changes from the 2018 version that has made its way into the combat in this one is the addition of adding a lot of different options for elemental and runic damage. By mashing a button on the Blades of Chaos, for example, you get Immolation, aka putting the Blades of Chaos on fire and dealing massive amounts of burn on your enemies. Same thing with the axe. By holding the triangle button, you unlock the Frost Awakens ability, which also allows you to inflict frost on the enemy and, of course, combine these two to deal massive amounts of damage. The spear thankfully offers a third level of combat variety by allowing you to harvest the elemental powers of whichever enemy type you are facing in order to use it against them. So for example, when you're fighting one of the new enemy types, the Einherjar, which are amazing by the way, you can take care of their Bifrost ability by harvesting it and using it against them to deal even more status afflicted moves. So as you can probably guess, by stacking elemental statuses on your opponents, you are forced to use the different weapons and of course have a lot more fun and variety while playing the actual game. This is one of the big issues in 2018 that people wanted to see solved. They wanted more gameplay variety, and this one delivers it in spades. I will say there is a clear distinction of what makes each one of the weapons great. The blades are definitely for crowd control, and although you can upgrade them to max level to deal some tons of damage with the burn, they are actually a step below when it comes to damage output compared to the Leviathan axe. The axe is the major powerhouse of this game, and I found myself using the axe as a setup weapon in order to deliver frost and use runic attacks that deliver tons of damage and frost on the enemy that allow that elemental damage of frost to be stacked up, and I can use burn to inflict even more damage with the immolation. As I mentioned before, the combat is rooted in customizability, and this extends to the menu system as well as the armor sets. This game is moving away from the traditional slot-style mechanics of God of War 2018, Assassin's Creed, and other RPG games that you may have been used to in the past. They streamlined the menu system, which is a welcome addition, and allow you to visually see all of the changes that you can make, both with your armor sets, the new enchantments, and of course, making sure that you have the best build possible for your specific playstyle. For example, now you can easily see the stacking effects of having a complete armor set at your disposal, and of course be able to pair that with adding enchantment slots that give you both passive and active buffs based on the playstyle that you are trying to go for. If you're trying to be a fiend with the elemental and runic damages, you can find an armor set that suits that playstyle and pair it with enchantments that slot together perfectly to give you buffs and make that playstyle workable. Another cool gameplay mechanic that makes it viable to go through this exploration is of course the sheer variety when it comes to the new shields. For example, you could use the Stonewall shield to stack up attacks from your enemy, even the unparryable yellow attacks, to use them as counters. You could use the Dauntless shield to do quick parries that deal tons of damage. Or you could use the classic circular shield that you get from the previous game and once it is repaired. Or just kick it just like in 2018 with elemental parries when you get the original circular shield repaired by Brock and Sindri. And finally, when it comes to the combat, the addition that I like the best is of course the customizability in the skill tree. As you know from the 2018 version, by acquiring XP within the game, you get to unlock new abilities that give you more variety and combat options with each of your specific weapons. In this installment, we take it a step beyond. By using said abilities a certain number of times, you unlock mastery tiers within those specific abilities. What exactly does that even mean? Well, by using a certain ability for let's say 100 times, you unlock the mastery ability to add stun, regular damage, even elemental damage or protection while you are casting that ability in the future. Once that ring glows gold in your skill tree, you can use XP to unlock the mastery and you never have to worry about it ever again. All three versions are unlocked, and now you have the full skill tree to work with if you're trying to go for an elemental build, for a stun build, or to do a full tank god build that allows you to have protection while casting all of your abilities across the board. This is truthfully one of the most satisfying combat experiences I have ever had with a AAA game, and even more so from a sequel that had so much pressure to live up to the greatness of the original. And just as if we were talking about the ShamWow, it doesn't stop there.
There's more!
And now that we know that they solved it on the combat side, we can also highlight the fact that this also helps you when it comes to the traversal and exploration side of the game. God of War Ragnarok is roughly 20 to 30 hours of deep exploration in an open world filled with all of the different wonders that the 9 realms have to offer. In order to get the full impact of that, you need extra levels of traversal variety in order to fully immerse yourself. The game design and variety in traversal mechanics have truthfully stepped up their game in this entry. For example, one of the biggest improvements and additions to this entry is the emphasis on verticality and strategy when it comes to your gameplay. By using the new abilities that your weapons have to offer and the verticality in the game design, now you can attack the opponents from different angles and from different heights to allow for stacking combos in the best way possible that makes you feel like you are truthfully the God of War. Coming in with an axe or the Blades of Chaos as a death from above specialist is something that you will never ever forget. Of course, that includes using the Blades of Chaos to circle around the arena and face the Einherjar in ways that you can stack both your elemental damage and have your partner, whether it be Atreus or, spoiler alert, Freya in the late game, stack runic effects on top of your elemental damage to truthfully give you a jigsaw puzzle of gameplay variety within the exploration of the minor areas inside a specific realm. You can use the axe to cut through objects, use the Blades of Chaos to jump over walls that would have been previously rendered inaccessible in the 2018 version, for example, and then in the late game use the Dropnir Spear to climb up objects and obstacles in order to reach amazing rewards. So it helps you in combat, it helps you in exploration, and it gives you variety when it comes to the strategy. Not only is the exploration amazing in the gameplay side, when it comes to the actual scale of the game, it just feels even greater than the first one. Now you have access to visit all of the 9 realms, and each one feels and looks so different and beautiful that it deserves its own time section for you to devote the appropriate amount of resources and, of course, your hours to explore all the little nitty-gritty nuggets of gold that are hidden in its puzzles. The big standouts to me are, for example, Svartalheim, the realm of the dwarves that looks like an oasis of rivers, frost, and, of course, Nordic-inspired villages that has a ton of new enemy variety and a ton of puzzles to solve. Then you also get the chance to explore Asgard, which looks nothing like what you would traditionally imagine as a city of gold. It looks completely different. I'm not going to spoil everything that happens in Asgard, but I would have to say that was one of the biggest surprises for the entire game. Even though I hate the elves with a passion for how much they have destroyed me in the past, Alfheim offers a new dimension of traversal and, of course, puzzle-solving variety that merits you going back multiple times to get all of the chests and rewards that you would have never had seen in the 2018 version to begin with. She's gone. Whee! Whee! I would have never thought that using purple crystals as boomerang surfaces to actually develop a strategy against the elves would have been something that was possible until this game. Midgard is now completely frozen over, which adds a different layer of aesthetic and exploration mechanics. And of course, if you want the best armor, you know that you have to go to Muspelheim and Helheim to explore the depths of hell and Surtur's domain. So yes, verticality, movement, and exploration are all intertwined to give you a worthwhile experience that makes you feel like you're in the game. And that level of freedom and immersion is not something that we truly get to experience often with AAA games. The puzzles are worthy of Zelda Breath of the Wild levels of praise, and even though they're not all complex, they add a level of novelty and challenge that make them worthwhile to complete. Whether it be through the crystals, whether it be jumping through different walls, whether it be simply stopping carnivorous plants from giving you extremely heavy poison damage, you will feel like every single realm has something new to offer. So, we've talked about the gameplay, the story, the variety, the traversal. Now let's talk about some of the minor things that they could have done better. You already know from the way that I talk about this game that I feel that this thing is as close to perfect as perfect can go. Especially when you take into account that some of the past issues were truthfully resolved in this one. Specifically when it comes to the repetitive nature of some of the enemy variety, the combat abilities, and the side missions. All of that is taken care of beautifully in this entry, like they are checkmarks on your Christmas list. For example, side quests now allow for more character development as you're basically trying to solve all of the open wounds that the 9 realms have to offer when it comes to Mimir, to Freya. How did they solve it on the narrative side? Well, for example, the side missions now offer a mythological exploration of the 9 realms and the issues based on myths that you get to solve in order to cure those open wounds that have been left to rot by the Aesir, specifically Odin. Also, the sheer variety in the post-game made me feel like as soon as you finish the main story, you have a brand new game to explore. There are tons of secrets scattered around the open world, including new mini-bosses and full bosses, berserkers, valkyries, and everything in between to make you feel like that enemy variety is no longer an issue. So, finally, let's talk about the small things that I would have changed. One of the largest changes from the 2018 version is that you actually get the chance to play as Atreus in this game. His combat design is absolutely sensational, and of course, the story elements that are tied to that exploration of Atreus' journey make it worth the time investment that you put into it. However, there are certain sections in certain moments that it seems that it could have been cut a little bit shorter. Spending over an hour and a half playing as Atreus is fun because you get to experience the game through his eyes. But not all of the rewards from the open world are available in this specific section, so while you could be spending time finding that extra armor set that you want, you are stuck just basically upgrading his bow, arrow, runic arrows, and sonic arrows. However, I will say with a grain of salt, I do hope that we get to explore all of his magical abilities in a new game if we are ever able to go through a full spin-off game of Atreus or have his full separate section in a mainline God of War game. So yes, these Atreus sections are fun, especially the one with Angerboda, but they could have been cut shorter in other sections to make some time for more exploration. As you can see, familia, I am trying really hard to find something to nitpick at because at bottom line, This is a masterpiece. Overall, God of War Ragnarok is the crowning achievement of this franchise that takes the legacy of the 2018 reboot and elevates it to another level that all other games moving forward will have to try and emulate. From the new and improved gameplay mechanics to a rich story that is interwoven into every single side mission and main story objective, you get a true AAA gaming experience that is worth every single cent and hour that you spend on it. It absolutely delivered a breathtaking open world that has tons of secrets to explore and uses all of its gameplay mechanics to help you traverse it in a way that immerses you fully. It's emotional, exhilarating, packed with a solid score, tear-jerking moments that have you on the edge of your seat, pun intended, and taken all together is one of the best gaming experiences I have ever had. Obviously, everybody is having their own discussion of whether this deserves to win Game of the Year over Elden Ring. To me, I'm just gonna give you my opinion. This is a straight 10 out of 10, A+, and gets the Tropical Joe seal of approval for greatness and replayability. I think when it comes to the discussion of Elden Ring versus God of War Ragnarok, both of these games have delivered excellence on every single level that would make them worthy of winning the award. Both on the mechanics, the story, the music, all of it accentuates the actual experience of playing the game, but I think they're fundamentally different types of experiences. Elden Ring has rich lore and story elements, but in reality, in order to fully experience its greatness, you have to be a Soulsborne pro, explore every single nook and cranny, and of course, go through endless item descriptions in order to get the full richness. Of course, it's also trying to test your mettle by also giving you extremely hard gameplay challenges that you have to overcome, and that level of satisfaction when you actually beat that boss that has been plaguing you for 20 hours, or I mean, 20 hours to me, but maybe an hour for you, is worth the price of admission. With that said, God of War Ragnarok has all of those elements from Elden Ring that you can customize to your liking, including the difficulty, that allows you to experience a rich, beautiful, well-made story that is interwoven into every single section of the gameplay. The emotion, the performances, and the absolute craziness of this story is what sets it apart and what makes it my pick to win Game of the Year. So, with all of that being said, I want to know your opinions. Let me know what you thought about the game if you completed it in the comments down below. What was your favorite character, your favorite moment, your favorite gameplay mechanic? And while you're out there, make sure to like the video, subscribe if you're new, and of course, I will see you on the next one.